Before the first vampire walked the earth, before immortality became a burden or a gift, there was a name that echoed through the shadows of time. Amel. He was not a god, but his presence shaped the fate of the immortals. His existence was a whisper in the darkness, a secret buried beneath ages of blood and mystery. Who was Amel? How did a bodiless entity become the beating heart of the vampire curse? His story is not just ancient, it is the origin of everything. If you wish to understand the true foundations of the vampire world, you must know Amel. But beware, those who seek the truth are not always prepared for what they will find. Since the dawn of existence, even before the concept of vampires took shape, there was an entity that wandered between the veils of reality. Amel was not a physical being, but a presence, a pulsating force that roamed without a body, without a destiny, yet with a powerful consciousness. Unlike the gods and demons of ancient mythologies, he ruled over no celestial domains nor demanded worship. His nature was instinctive raw and intense energy, endlessly searching for a purpose even he did not fully understand. This wandering essence found its first bond with the material world through humans. Amel watched, felt, and desired. He fed on the emotions, the yearnings, and the suffering of mortals, becoming increasingly aware of his own existence. But his connection to the world was incomplete. He was a spirit without flesh, a whisper in the shadows longing for something more, a body, a form, a definitive identity. And it was this need that led him to his ultimate fate. The origin of vampirism. What makes Amel so fascinating is not just his connection to vampires, but how he became a central pillar of their creation. His energy, an untamed force, did not merely touch humans, it transformed them, granting them a fragment of his own immortality. He did not create vampires with divine purpose, nor did he curse them with a thirst for destruction. His influence was accidental, yet irreversible. Amel's first bond with a mortal body would be the spark that ignited an eternal flame. Amel's story is shrouded in mystery because his essence does not follow the ordinary rules of existence. He is neither a traditional spirit nor a god who dictates fate. He is a chaotic force, a presence that irreversibly altered the course of history. To understand vampires, one must first understand Amel, for without him, immortality as we know it would never have existed. Amel was not a god, nor an ordinary spirit. He was a raw force of pure energy, a being that existed beyond flesh yet felt an insatiable hunger. Not a hunger for blood or flesh, but for presence, for connection, for existence itself. He longed for something to give him form, something to anchor him to the material world. His need grew over time, evolving into an almost obsessive desire to belong, to feel, to possess something that would make him real. This hunger drove him closer to humans, for they were creatures full of intense emotions: love, fear, pain, desire. Amel fed on these emotions, absorbing every scream of agony and every whisper of pleasure, as if they were part of his very essence. But merely feeling was not enough. He wanted more. He longed to touch, to see, to directly influence the world. It was this insatiable hunger that, without his knowledge, would place him at the center of the creation of vampires. The key to transformation came when Amel encountered those who, out of ambition or despair, sought something beyond mortality. Among them were ancient priests and kings, men who yearned for immortality and the hidden secrets of the universe. They did not see Amel as a threat, but as a power to be controlled. And so, the first bond was formed. The hungry spirit, drawn to those who desired power. However, Amel could not be tamed. His presence did not just bring knowledge, it carried unpredictable consequences. Amel's hunger and human ambition intertwined in an unprecedented pact. Unknowingly, he became the beating heart of a new race, something beyond mortals, beyond gods. His hunger transformed him into a catalyst, an invisible core of immortality. And when he finally found a body to inhabit, the course of human history changed forever. The moment Amel found his first mortal host marked the beginning of a new era. After centuries wandering as an invisible presence, he discovered a body capable of enduring his essence, a vessel strong enough to channel his power without being instantly destroyed. This first host was not a divine chosen one, nor a hero destined for greatness. He was simply the first to withstand the weight of the entity without perishing. The fusion between Amel and his first host was not a smooth process. It was a silent war, a collision of forces between the hungry spirit and the mortal body. Amel had no refined method for merging with flesh, entered like a wildfire, burning everything in his path, reshaping the body to his will. What emerged from this fusion was no longer a mere human. He was something different, something new. The first truly immortal being had been created. This possession, however, was not an isolated event. It became the blueprint for the creation of many others like him. The human body alone could not contain Amel indefinitely, and so his essence began to be passed on, infiltrating others through a primordial act, the exchange of blood. The first vampire was born a being that carried within itself a fragment of Amel's hunger and essence. But this creation came at a cost. Those who inherited this essence did not only gain immortality, they were cursed with the same hunger as Amel. They needed to consume to exist, to drain the life of others in order to sustain their own. Amel never intended to create monsters, but that is exactly what happened. His desire to feel, to exist fully, gave birth to a race that fed upon humanity itself. Her first host was none other than Akasha. But Akasha was no ordinary mortal. She was a powerful queen, feared and worshipped, ruling over the ancient land of Kemet, the civilization that would later be known as Egypt. Beautiful, ruthless, and obsessed with the knowledge of the gods, Akasha sought immortality not as a gift, but as a right. She believed she could claim eternity for herself, and unknowingly, she attracted the attention of the entity that would change her life forever. It was through a dark and forbidden ritual that Akasha became Amel's first host. Her mortal body became the perfect vessel to contain the hungry essence of the wandering spirit. But the fusion between them was not gentle, it was violent, overwhelming. Amel entered her like a storm of raw power, burning her bones, rewriting her flesh, transforming her into something never seen before. In the very instant he merged with Akasha, the first vampire was born. She became something beyond human. Beyond a queen, she became the origin of an entirely new race. Akasha's transformation was not merely physical. Her mind was flooded with Amel's chaos. Her consciousness now intertwined with the entity that had once roamed freely. She could feel his presence within her, whispering ancient secrets, fueling her thirst for blood and power. But Akasha was no mere puppet. She mastered her new condition, embracing the darkness and becoming the first true sovereign of the vampires. In her arrogance, she believed she had tamed Amel, but the truth was far darker. He was trapped inside her, fragmented, unable to escape. The curse Akasha carried could not be contained within her alone. Her blood, now infused with Amel's essence, became the key to the creation of new vampires. Her reign soon became an empire of immortals, for those who drank her blood inherited a fragment of the imprisoned spirit. Each new vampire carried within them a piece of Amel, spreading his influence across the world. And so, the lineage of the immortals was born, sealing the destiny of vampires forever. After her transformation, Akasha did not merely accept her new nature, she embraced it with absolute fervor. If she had once been a mortal queen, she now saw herself as something divine, a being above all forms of life. The power that coursed through her veins was not just immortality, but a direct connection to Amel, a bond that made her feel invincible. Akasha believed herself to be the sole legitimate ruler of the world, and saw vampires not as predators lurking in the shadows, but as living gods among mortals. With absolute power, Akasha ushered in an age of terror. She demanded worship, loyalty, and obedience. To the newly created vampires, she was the origin of all things, the first, the strongest, the mother, and the goddess. But her reign was not benevolent. Akasha viewed humans as nothing more than servants, inferior creatures that existed solely to feed her hunger and satisfy her thirst for control. Those who dared to defy her vision were destroyed without hesitation. Amel's influence within her, though fragmented, still pulsed. She heard his voice, felt his presence, and this only strengthened her belief that her destiny was divine. But at the same time, this connection began to consume her from within. Akasha believed she had mastered Amel, but the truth was far more complex. He was still there, watching, waiting, influencing her actions in ways she did not fully understand. The hunger that burned inside her was not only her own, it was Amel's hunger, amplified, distorted, and transformed into an insatiable thirst for absolute power. However, her tyranny sparked resistance. Not all vampires agreed with her vision of domination. Some saw her thirst for control as a threat to their entire kind. The first rebellions began to emerge, and even those who had been created from her blood started to question her authority. Akasha may have been the first, but she was not the only one. And soon, the empire she had tried to build would begin to crumble. Akasha's absolute power seemed unquestionable. But like all tyrannies, her reign met resistance. The eldest vampires, those who understood their own existence best, began to see the danger in Akasha's ambition. She wanted a world ruled only by vampires, but their survival depended on balance between night and day, between secrecy and legend. Her vision of turning humanity into mere cattle was unsustainable. The rebellion started quietly, but soon erupted into open war. Akasha, for all her strength, was still just one. Her once loyal followers began turning against her. The greatest fear among the vampires was that her obsession would bring destruction not just to humans, but to their own immortal lineage. The conflict grew until Akasha was betrayed and overthrown. Killing her would require a sacrifice no vampire was willing to make for as long as she lived. All vampires still carried her essence. Instead of destroying her, Akasha was imprisoned, placed in a deep slumber. Her body was sealed away, becoming a living relic, a silent queen who still pulsed with Amel's power, but could no longer command. Her body became a symbol of both fear and reverence. While she slept, her blood still flowed through her descendants, but her mind was isolated, trapped in deep dreams where her connection to Amel was more intense than ever. Time passed, and Akasha became a legend among vampires. Some believed that one day she would awaken and reclaim her throne. Others saw her prison as a necessity, a reminder that no immortal should wield such power alone. But one truth remained. While Akasha slept, Amel was still there, silent, waiting, watching. And what would happen if she awoke once more? Even after Akasha's fall, Amel remained, trapped in an eternal cycle of fragmentation and influence. Though his first host had been silenced, his essence still pulsed within the blood of all vampires, a shadow that could never be erased. He was no longer a free entity, yet he was not completely captive either. His consciousness, now scattered across thousands of immortal bodies, made him both omnipresent and powerless. A god without a throne, a king without a crown. As the centuries passed, Amel became a myth among vampires. Some believed that he still whispered to the oldest among them, subtly guiding their actions. others claimed he had gone mad, lost in a maelstrom of voices and memories belonging to countless vampires. There were even those who attempted to communicate with him through dark rituals, seeking to unravel his true nature. Was he a spirit forever imprisoned, or a dormant creator, waiting for the right moment to return? The mystery of Amel remained unsolved, but his influence never faded. His legacy was undeniable, for without him, immortality would not exist. He was the core of the vampire curse, the energy that bound all immortals together in an invisible web. Even without a body of his own, he remained the beating heart of his creation, the link connecting every vampire to the very first moment of their existence. And as long as the immortal lineage endured, Amel would never be forgotten. But what if there was a way to set him free? What if Amel's essence could be reunited, restoring his ancient consciousness? Would this mean the end of vampirism, or the beginning of something even more powerful and unpredictable? Amel's fate remains an enigma, but one thing is certain: as long as vampires exist, so will Amel. And as long as he exists, the thirst for truth will never end. So, what did you think of this dark and mysterious journey into the origins of vampirism? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. Thank you so much for watching until the end and for being part of this quest for answers. See you in the next video, and stay tuned, more mysteries like this are on the way. Until then,